Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Welcome back to our third series of Ilam webinar session. So in the previous topic, they have discussed briefly on how the new norm will be taken as a norm, and the subsequent session they have discussed about the correlation between this epidemic spread with ecology and biodiversity. So I believe that those topics is actually interrelated. And today, we have a topic of reforming landscape architecture practice post-pandemic. So today we try to dig out a few insights and perspectives from our respectful panelists here, both local and international. So while we live broadcasting, feel free to leave your comments, to like, or to give whatever suggestion, because our panelists will be live interacting with you guys throughout this session. And also, please feel free to share this live view via your Facebook watch party. And just for your information, this live view also can be seen through our YouTube channel, Ilam. And don't forget to collect your CPD point by snapshot this live screen and submit to Ilam before 31st May. So without further ado, I think let us introduce our 5 panelists today. So our first panelist, we brought to you special from the country of the rising sun, Japan, Mr. Fumiaki Takano. He is the chairman for Takano Landscape Planning and was as a manager director of Takano Landscape Planning. He is also the current president IFLA APR, Asian Pacific Region, and as a former professional engineer way back in 1978 in Japan, graduated from Department of Agriculture University, Hokkaido, also graduate from School of Environmental Design, Georgia, USA. And just for your information, Mr. Takano also the former chief landscape architect, project manager who is involved in Shah Alam Lake Garden. So the next one we have Mr. Syed Musli, which is from far on the western side, Miami, United States. He is the vice president from David Thorne Design. He is also professional landscape architect under Board of Landscape Architects Florida. He obtained bachelor's in landscape architecture from Iowa State University, as well as his master way back in 1999. He was in ITM way back 1989. He got this wide range of working experience abroad, including US itself, as well as Qatar and Malaysia. So third panelist will be landscape architect Alfred Lee Fei Chong. So he is from our neighbor, Singapore. He is also the director of STX Landscape Architect, Site Tectonic, and he obtained his degree in landscape architecture from UTM Johor, and also our Ilam corporate member, and full member of SILA, Singapore Institute of Landscape Architects. And he actually active in contributing as jury for various of events. Our fourth one will be landscape architect Hua Chin Eng, which is our local landscape architect who is the founder and director of Land Art Design Sdn Berhad, our Ilam corporate member, and he got his bachelor's degree in landscape architecture from UTM Johor, Malaysia, also a diploma holder in urban and regional planning from the same university. Other than this landscape architecture, their team also involved in interior design. So last but not least, our beautiful lady here, landscape architect Wan Salamatul Juwita Wan Hashim, also from Malaysia, who is the founder and director of Verona Design Sdn Berhad, our Ilam corporate member, graduated in Bachelor of Landscape Architecture from UTM Johor. And she is also our former of Ilam Young Landscape Architect 2015 award winner. So I guess during COVID-19, most of the regions are affected. So government has imposed this restricted movement order. Like it or not, I think it has affecting our topologies of working. So maybe Juita, you want to share with us what is your experiences, your challenges, and how you cope with this. Goes to you, Juita.
Okay. Assalamualaikum and good morning. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having me for this sharing session. My name is Landscape Architect Jutawan Hashim, and I am the founder and director of Verona Design Neighborhood, landscape architecture firm based in Kuala Lumpur. The main challenges that I'm facing during this outbreak is, of course, to adapt to the new norm, which is the new work from home to ensure the staff stay safe and healthy. As we can see, the digital transformation rise in the middle of pandemic crisis, and the usage of the digital readiness is no longer an optional, but is a must. As for us, we work like a normal business as usual. We have weekly virtual meeting between clients and consultants using Microsoft Teams, and there is some deadlines that we still have to meet, and we try to produce our best for our clients. And what I found out about this virtual meeting is the meetings are shorter and more effective. This will gain a momentum and it will become a necessity for all of us in the future. For our office team, because we are a boutique landscape architecture, so it's easier to manage. So we normally communicating through WhatsApp and email most of the time. And the task will be given with the deadline to be met every day, and timesheet and work done to be submitted at the end of the day. Since we are still not be able to go to the site during the coronavirus outbreak, I am optimistic that this period will allow us to focus more on the design review, such as landscape presentations, enhancing our 3Ds, landscape concept, and at the same time, doing the project coordinations and working drawings. And I believe the clear, constant, and consistent communication between the team and some of the key to be successful working from home. We have also to be always stay on track, and we have to be disciplined. The other challenges that we are facing during the outbreak is one of it is technological limitations and access to facilities, because some of our staff are using a laptop and we don't have the high resolutions of the software, and this might have some impact on the time deliverance of the works. And we also have problems on the access of facilities because we need to use A1 plotter and scanner, which I think we need to able to print and sketch ideas out collaboratively. And during the outbreak, we need to rely on the A4 paper printing. Other than that is, I think, is an access to the hard copy documentation, especially on the access to the company documentations, especially on the hard copy versions. And there is a few minor misinterpretations and miscommunications at the earlier stage. As in the office, we are always working in the same room, and we are easier to go and visit and talk face to face if, let's say, we want to explain or we want to share some ideas. So currently we are working remotely, and we have to depend on the WhatsApps or phone calls or virtual meetings. So there might be some hiccups, but we managed to overcome with a few phone calls and a few other round of discussions. And for working mothers like me, there might be distractions from small kids, so which also can impact on our focus on productivity, which actually you can overcome by keeping them busy and occupied. For the payments, we are be able to collect some of the payments from a few clients via online transfer during the lockdown period, which I think this is very crucial and very important, because during the lockdown period, company has to live based on the existing cash reserve. So I reckon they must have some system, there must be a system that you have to arrange, the consultant have to arrange with the clients to ensure that the consultant will consistently will get paid during the lockdown, because it is very important for the company's sustainable. At the same time, we are consistently invoicing and keep on monitoring from time to time. And I think there is some anticipations of problems and what's the worst that can happen that we have to expect. It will happen once the MCO is lifted. One is a delay on the construction project because as you know that ongoing construction site will not instantly start after the lockdown. Contractor needs to time to remobilize the laborers and materials. They need to fulfill the requirements and SOP by the governments by going to sit for COVID tests, and this will take time and we need to be very patient. And the second is a delay or shortage of resources or materials, especially from Europe and China, because due to the people working versus non-working, this might be some companies or factories will stop reduce production. Number three, delay on the business operations because some of the companies have to comply SOP to start work. We need to disinfect office, we need to clean the office, we need to rearrange the sitting in the office. So there might be a delay on the company to start operating. And since clients not be able to do any public gathering for these few months, we need to expect that some of the dates of the public launching might have to postpone. And we have to expect for the worst. There might be job cancellation as well due to recessions. And they are also a possibility that the clients might ask us to change or modify the layout and design in response to this changing reality, which is COVID-19 approach. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Juwita. I think based on your explanation, I actually totally agree with you. So yeah, pick up point from what you have said just now regarding project delay. I guess it is actually not really a good sign for this build industry, right?
Yeah,
but anyway,
have to get ready to face.
Yes, despite of these challenges, I think we still need to move on, and we can see that everything is online. Everything is online, right? So let us hear experience from Mr. Said, who is now working in United States. Goes to you, Mr. Said.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah. My name is Said Musli. I've been in the state for more than 25 years. I mean, since the arrival of COVID-19, it's not much different than previous day before, because we always utilize all the technology, conference, teleconference, because all projects basically located overseas. So most of the consultants or designers are coming from a different part of the world. So we are used to long distance relationship. So we rely on the technology, teleconference, everything. So when we COVID-19 arrived, basically pretty much the business carry as usual, except we have more conference, more video, more video conferences. But we ask our staff to bring back all their desktop, laptops to be back home, so we can participate in the conference with the other firm. But in terms of workload, it started getting less right now because of the client concern about their investment. Some of the clients pull out from the investment because they want to save money because for their own future. I mean, we could understand that, but that's the reality. That's what we tell our staff. That right now they have to be careful what they spend. They have to be careful all the money they're going to spend. Because we are glad because we are be able to access all the technology all the devices that we need to do the job. The other thing is in terms of COVID-19, so right now we are focusing on how we can carry the job done. We get the job done by individually. How we going to monitor them? Because before we work as a team. We have a team leader that monitor their staff, that monitor the quality of work. But right now everything is online. Yeah, I mean, then that part of the challenge, because before we have to print everything and sit down and discuss about it. Right now, just look at, you have to look at the screen and comment it on the screen. That's another challenge that we are facing right now. I don't know about you guys, but in the state, especially in Florida, we don't have totally lockdown like Malaysia, where everybody cannot go out and buy stuff. But over here, even though if you look at the numbers of the cases, it's unbelievable, and sometimes it's scary too. At some point, I'm just afraid to look at the news because of the numbers. It's scary. The death toll is unbelievable. But people like, who cares? Life must goes on. You know, that's the attitude that they have in the public right now. Even you go to public, some people don't even wear masks. And then if you look at the news right now, they are protesting to have the business open. They want to get their life back together. That is depend on the individual. As a company, I mean, we try to get normal as we can, and try at the same time try to save the employee. What else could I say? Like I say, like business, when the COVID-19 arrived, to us it's like normal, same as the day before, because that's the way we operate. Because the project that we have is basically from overseas, and we have to rely on conference, teleconference, video conference, everything. So that's why every single staff there was a supply with technology, so can access the email every time. They have to check the email every time, because email is very important thing, essential for the business. What the main thing is, because we so rely on technology, sometimes you got hiccup. For example, if the transformer got struck by lightning, I mean, the whole thing is down, because we can't communicate, the internet down, everything is down. That's a bad thing. Other than that, everything seems fine. But in terms of payment from client, right now it's a bit slow, because to chase payment, there's a lot of some client give a lot of excuses. They're afraid to spend more money because they're afraid of they are skeptical about the future of their own business, as well as us, and then so on. I mean, we understand that, and we try to accommodate what they need. At the same time, they're also demanding high demand on how they want, what they want to do based on the current situation. That's why we try to accommodate what they need. I think that's it from the Florida.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Said, for your sharing on your experience there in United States. So I can see that unlike from Malaysia, you and your team there is actually used to this long distance communication, because of most of the consultants there are from international. And I think same like Malaysia, the workload is affected, so it becomes lesser, right? And the problem is now you're talking about the individual assessment. I think it relates back to the efficiency of the working environment, right? Because some of the companies nowadays, after I mean during or maybe after the pandemic, they would practice, they have to practice this work from home basis on the certain days. And even some of the companies, they are cutting down the working days, and not to mention the wages as well. So I think this is actually is a period of recalibrating. So I think, all of us, I think we have to embrace ourselves period. So I believe it is actually also affecting this cash flow, whatever, right? And the economy itself, the economic impact itself. So Mr. Pua, as the owner, as one of the owner, landscape architecture firm, I think it relates to the word of business resilient. So I believe every one of us agreed that everything might not be the same after pandemic, right? So how do you think that we could prepare ourselves to be more resilient and to be more resilient towards this pandemic if this happen again in the future? Goes to you, Mr. Pua.
All right, thanks, Sarah. I'm Pua. Good morning, everyone. Personally, I feel our profession would remain the same after the pandemics. But the big difference is that people have the chance to experience a new lifestyle of working from home. I believe all this is only temporary. As a founder of a company, I would prefer my team members to work in a proper office environment because I believe it will be more effective when we have to brainstorm for concept ideas and design solutions for the projects. And team members working under one roof, I believe, will be more motivated, productive, cooperative, and cost-effective compared to working alone from home. I still believe in teamwork. That's my experience during MCO. For the project management team, they will still need to be on site to solve the site issues and to ensure the quality of work to be carried out properly. But the good point is that I managed to expose new technology tools like Zoom and Microsoft Teams for presentation and conducting meeting in the air, like example for today. They're very efficient tools. It's the only thing that we need to take some time to pick up the skill. More especially for meeting like a long distance with the clients and effective communications. The new perspective that I believe there will be brighter future for our profession. It can be expanded the services to other countries like by using these new inventions of the technology. I believe will be more productive and we can excel in this our profession. We should also fly less and consider the impact of our climates and also for our health. Now that we have to master Zoom, so indirectly we can spend more time doing research and reading and how to design a better city to improve our health for our little planet here. Besides that, I also take this time to pick up my computer skill and communication skill through a text tool. Is an outbreak happen again in the future? I think we can learn from the previous experience to better prepare for the future economy, socials, and also environmental crisis. No matter in which era we live in, I believe that most important skill is our willingness to learn and to explore every single stage in our life. Finally, having a positive mindset and attitude in life will make us more resilient no matter what profession we are in. That's my thought. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Phua, for your sharing just now. Yep, I think I agree with Mr. Phua that now we are adapting to the new lifestyle, the new norm, as you can see. And you can see that technology become more essential, right? And then it has emerged very fast in our routine, working routine. And then I think one of the good points that you have said just now is about set your mindset. So you have to be positive. And then of course you have to willing in exploring whatever tools that we can use in the future that contributing to become a resilient community. So maybe we could go back to Mr. Takano. Perhaps Mr. Takano would like to share his experience in Hokkaido.
Yes, I will.
Working during the pandemic. Yeah. Goes to you.
Okay. It is my great pleasure and honor to participate in this conference, and it is great to see everybody. And I'd like to start, yes. about my presentation. It is a bit, maybe a bit different from the other panelists, because this is my life in Hokkaido. And it is my pleasure meeting these peoples. This is, yes, go back to the, yes, no. Yeah, and I started my practice in 1975, and I practiced my landscape architect in Tokyo, the capital of Japan, big city, about 15 years. Then I decided to shift my whole operation to the Hokkaido, which is a countryside, and now already 30 years there. Okay, next, please. Next, please. Yes, being in a big city, everybody thinks this is a place to run the practice because lots of economic movement is there and improves efficiency and centralization and urbanism and modern artificial environment living there, and also flying all over the world and seeing the new project. And there's more landscape project and there's a chance to meet more talented people. So it was the symbol of success for the many years. Okay. Next. Next, please. And after 15 years practicing in Tokyo, we decided to move to the Hokkaido. And living in the countryside is lots of nature, life. Many things are small and low density, and speeds are very slow, dispersion, and sometimes not efficient at all. But this is a symbol of the rich quality of life. Okay. And being in Hokkaido, we had a chance to overview the landscape. Being a landscape architect, this is important point of view to see the environment, see the scale of Earth before we start planning and design. Okay. Next, please. Yes, and there is a lot of diversified nature very nearby. We don't have to drive so many hours to see the nature. Okay. Then this is a place we have an office. This is the middle of the countryside, Kampong area. And we have about 200 population of the small village, farming village. And maybe we have over 500 cows there. Okay. And this is our office. It used to be the elementary school, but since number of the children decreased, so they closed it down and they converted this to the community center of the farmers. And now we are sharing the space together with the farmers community center. It is very unusual situation, but it's lots of fun. Okay. And many good things being in Hokkaido, and this is one of them. We have a lots of bigger space to play with. We made a model 1 to 10 scale, and we located this in the right direction of the sun movement, so we can see the sunset cast a shadow, and it's really visualize our landscape design. Okay. And also, since we have a big gym in a elementary school or the elementary school, so we can exercise full scale model design over there. Okay. And another good thing is we have the present from farmer sometimes in the morning when we go to the office. And it feels very peaceful and feels safe because in case we lost many projects, but we still can survive. Okay. My private life is also changed too. This is an old farmhouse, abandoned old farmhouse. I bought it and I renovated. This is giving a new life to the history of the region. Okay. My private life is also changed, and I had 2 horses in my property and practicing every day. Okay. I'm still jumping and participating the competition. But a few years ago, I broke my leg, so I'm a very strong landscape architect, as strong as a steel. Okay. And even in the countryside of the Hokkaido, the Kampong village, we still have many young students want to internship to us. So far, we have 33 countries and over 300 internship students, many from Malaysia too. Okay. And so there are many additional benefits, such as cutting the commuting time, and we don't have to worry about paying the high rent of the office, and we can enjoy our fruitful life in a beautiful nature. So this is advantages living in countryside. Okay. I think this is about phase 1. Yeah, question 1. So go back to Sarah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Takano. Thank you, Mr. Takano, for sharing your experiences working in countryside. So you can see that based on your explanation just now, you talk about the advantages of working within the countryside. I guess throughout this pandemic or even post-pandemic, it becomes a prominent reason that people might travel or might explore the countryside as a working place. I can see that your office, it is actually originally elementary school.
Yes.
Turned out to be a very beautiful office surrounded with all those beautiful greeneries there. So I guess all your team are very happy with that, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We go back to
For my next question, yeah, I will talk about how we got this for the pandemic.
Yeah, maybe you can share with us
I can share
how this pandemic
second questions. Yeah, I
affect to your working experience.
Okay.
Goes to you, Mr. Takano.
Now? Okay, all right. And this pandemic teaches many things. As everybody said, most meeting can be done online, and we don't have to travel to Tokyo or foreign countries so often, and it saves time, cost, and give more the precious time of our life. We have done many overseas projects and from this Kampong office in Hokkaido, and it while continuing the lifestyle in nature, and we must stay away from the stereotype thought that great work only can be done in a big city. We can do the work from anywhere, and living in a big city is always causing a problem. And to secure the social distance, avoiding the seating, crowding, and closeness are essential, but it is very easy practice in the countryside. And I think our work as a landscape architect is creating the comfortable and healthy environment and lifestyle. And I think the innovation of work style is possibly when landscape architects move away from big city to the countryside. Okay.
Right, thank you, Mr. Takano. So a few pickup points there that you were saying. It doesn't matter where you're working, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually depending on how you maneuver it. So whether it is in countryside or urban side, so it shouldn't constrain your innovation or contribution towards this profession.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Mr. Takano? Thank you
Yeah.
for your sharing. So I think it is also relate to the word of resilient again. I think like Japan, despite of all these fluctuation cases happen in Singapore, I believe it could prolong impact to the community. So I want to ask Mr. Alfred, how do you think that landscape architect could contribute to the community to face any future pandemic? Goes to you, Alfred.
Yeah, hi. Morning, everyone. Morning to all the audience. And very happy to be here. And yes, I think, Sarah, you're right. So before I even able to actually answer everything, I'm going to share like some slides with you guys. And I think the most important thing is actually understand like some of the issues like that's like happening around the world, and like I would just talk about my experience in Singapore because like that's like where I basically live and practice most of the time. And if I could like just start with like resources, because this is actually something very important, because let's talk about Singapore. Everyone know that Singapore is like basically like a high population, high density like country, and it's actually pretty like different from Malaysia, because like Malaysia you have like a good balance of like high density area, you have like suburban area, you have like a low density like development, those kind of things. But even though while Singapore is like one of the strongest financial hub in the world, the main issue is actually remain like the scarcities of like all the resources. So what I'm going to do today is just like focus on a few things, not everything, but things that are closely related to us. So the first two things that we are going to look at is actually basically greenery and about the water resources. And I think like the most important thing is that the government of Singapore, they basically know like what's coming their way. As in like they know that the resources are scarce, and they have to look at like ways like to be a bit more like self-sustained and cut down the reliance of some of the supplies from other countries. So even before the COVID, they already look at ways like how to actually like overcome some of this like issue that they have. And so what I'm showing you right now is actually my own thoughts about like what might happen after the pandemic. So I'll just go like very quickly on these two things. So I'll focus on some other stuff. So about greeneries and water, and just even before like COVID, the Singapore government are really looking at things like a landscape replacement program. So basically, whatever you took out, you have to actually put it back. And they also look at like tree conservation area, like about certain like area you cannot just like anyhow cut down the trees. You have to seek like approval from the authorities. And they also like have a lot of like this green program, such as like green mark, leaf, and skyrise greenery, those kind of like things. And even for like the water itself. And what you would know then is that like there's like this water bill that's like coming up in about 30 years time. So they are looking at like Malaysia's government like probably like adjusting the tariff that they are going to pay. And so what they wanted to do is actually to make sure that they will actually cut down the reliance on the raw water from Malaysia. So they have launched this like active, beautiful, clean program, and just to make sure that every drops in the water in Singapore is basically count for everything, and just collect as much as possible. And at the moment, there's a few things like they are doing like a new water program. So those basically are like water that you can actually drink from the reservoir. So that consists of like about 40% of the water demand. And they have a lot of like these desalination plants as well. And those can actually like meet about 30% of the water demands in Singapore. So they are just looking at how to actually make all this thing like even more on the higher side in terms of like percentages. And those are the responses. So whatever I mentioned, like you could see that there might be like changes to some of this thing. And of course, then there's like another two other things that's like closely related to Singapore, and like the thing that they can see like immediately the impact like during this COVID. The first thing is about manpower. Second thing is about food security. So like even though like it has nothing to do, the MCO has nothing to do with Singapore, right? But when the moment that like Singapore government announced that, oh, you know, like there's like this MCO, then the Singapore government basically they had to press the panic button, and they got pretty nervous about transportation, because like in Singapore there's like about 3,000 to 4,000 transportation workers that's actually from Malaysia. Then they have to actually start to activate their business continuity plan, and then start giving choice like to the Malaysia workers to choose either they wanted to go back to JB and bring enough clothing and come over in Singapore, and then they will just like find ways like for them to actually live in Singapore. That's something good to see. And the other thing is actually about food security. The same thing happened. So when MCO was actually announced, and what happened was like there was like a panic buying, because like a lot of like Singaporeans start to worry about, oh, those vegetables from Cameron Highlands is not going to come to Singapore, and how am I supposed to like, you know, to eat like fresh vegetable and things like that. So so because of all this thing, and I think that there's going to be like a chain of reaction that's like going to respond to it. Of course, like for the manpower side, there might be like you know like some changes, as you can see like on my screen like right now. Then on the other side, I would just focus a lot more on food security, because I think this is one of the main thing that is like that they might actually be focusing right now. As you can see on the screen, I also like mentioned that 90% of the nutritional needs of Singaporean actually comes all over from the world. So if you look at like the percentages, it actually basically suggests to you that they are a bit like over reliant on like the help from other countries. So they have like this 30 by 30 mission that they wanted to actually produce 30% of the nutritional needs by the year 2030. And then like this is something that even before the COVID, they already started doing. And even like things like urban farming, they're looking at like new technologies, what can we do, and like looking at things like community farmings and even home farming. So I'm going to focus a lot more on like the part that's related to food security. And like what I mentioned earlier is about the over reliance of like the needs from all over the world. So they have to so what the Singapore government have like done is that they have set up like Singapore Food Agency in just last year. It was like 2019, and then they set up this goal like 30 by 30. And so like what I mentioned is basically to handle the scarcity and the limit of supply. So you could, I think one of the possibilities is that maybe some of this like thing may change. Like you wouldn't know, like after this pandemic, it will just like become something like 50% by 2030. So it could be like things that's like that happening. So it's almost like a very tall order that's like coming from above. It's like the policymaker and the government wanted to do that. And I think in Singapore it's very small, so they have to be very creative and innovative in finding ways to reach the goal. And at the moment, Singapore probably have like about 10 to 20 companies that's like looking at that's like doing research and development for urban farming, vertical farming, things like that. So you won't be surprised to us that after this pandemic, like the number is going to go up. I'm not surprised by that. And the other thing is that food. One of the good things to know is that food security is actually quite close to the heart of many Singaporeans. So the government wasted no time in responding to the pandemic. So immediately after the pandemic, they announced that, okay, they are going to like, you know, pump in like more money to actually help the local farmers to grow things faster. So that's why I mentioned that there might be actually a change in target as well. And I would like you to actually take a look at this thing. So the first thing that I mentioned is more like a regional like strategy. So like they also think about like from the community point of view. So what are the things that they can do? So community farming is actually not something new in Singapore. So in many HDB housing, they already started doing this thing. So it's actually managed by the resident committee. So you basically can rent and then plant anything that you want. So, but post-pandemic, I think there would be, I won't be surprised that there will be a trend that like they wanted to utilize like the roof of the multi-story car park in HDB housing to actually start trying out some of the idea about urban farming, because like they don't have enough land. So they have to think about like creative ways of like making this thing work. And like 90% of the Singaporean or like the population basically stay in a HDB flat. So that's what they're thinking about. And so it will be something like a chain reaction. So there might be like a series of like a policy that's going to come up because of that as well. And lastly is about like how within the home, what you can do and what are the things that they have done. So the Singapore governments, they have like been quite, what do you call that, like upfront in helping, like giving out like research grants to agency and startups. And for example, they have funded a project called Mr. Toe. So basically what they have done is to fund like interesting studies like this, the thing on the left hand side. So it's actually something that I have visited like about a month ago. So they are talking about like, you know, building like a container within your own home that you can actually grow any vegetable that you want. And on the right hand side, the farm shelf that you're seeing, so it's actually something that's like quite popular in some of the high end restaurants in the States. Because like some of the Michelin star chef, they wanted to like, you know, grow fresh and then they can actually pluck fresh and eat fresh and cook fresh. So that's what's happening around the world. So there might be like a, you know, like more like efforts in looking at all these like method post-pandemic as well. So I wanted to like come back a bit like on the business part of it, because like we have to see like what we can then do to contribute in combating like future pandemics and some of the calamity that might happen. And I honestly can't really like think about us like being useful in the middle of the pandemic, because I think like the more important is like how are we you know, before that, like do something to actually like help the situation. So the first thing I think that all landscape architect, and if you are practicing yourself, and if you are like a business owner, you can one of the most important things is like to keep up with technologies. Like we are talking about like the fourth industrial revolution, and people are talking about like 5G, even like people started researching about 6G, and there are things like about AI, augmented reality, things like that we are like looking at, and we have to see like how some of these technology we can actually utilize them into like our everyday work. And so one of the important things is also like for us to be able to actually come up with something and better prepare for it. So I think we have to really like study a lot and talk to a lot of like experts from a wide range of disciplines. So we are even looking at things like ecologists, botanists, biologists, like psychologists as well. So one of the interesting things is that I have like listened to the recent like webinar. So there is a sharing by both Dr. Tongku Rinalfi and Dr. Catherine, which one of them is actually an ecologist, the other one of them is actually a scientist. So it's a very useful insight for us, and like, you know, those are the kind of like conversation that we should have like a lot more in order to actually make it like useful to everyone. So if you are business owner, so I think one of the things that you could do is to support and encourage your staff in attending classes and relevant training program. So if you could also finance them or like just grant them paid leave, because I think that's something good to actually do, and they would appreciate it. So it's really like brushing up our skill and quickly embrace like the thing that we know, so that we can better respond to the next pandemic. So if you don't already, this will be very last, okay? If you don't already like make it like a mantra or like a core value of your business, so you always like make this like part of like your something that you have to like do always. So you have to, what you can do also is that you can always like set a design checklist at the end of every design exercises. Ask yourself some hard question. So because like by doing that constantly, it will actually help you to achieve what you want. And the last thing is that the most important thing is to walk the talk. So don't just talk the talk, because that's one of the most important things. If you have great ideas, you have to find a way to realize it, or like to hold on to the principle. So that's what I basically have for now. Over back to you, Sarah.
Okay, thank you, Alfred, for your sharing. I guess from Singapore side, we can see that government play kind of like important roles to tackle all this scarcity of resources in terms of greenery, water resources, through all these green programs, right, Alfred?
Yes, they do, because they find out that I think the most important is like what you have to prepare for the next pandemic is that you cannot be over reliant on like external resources, because like if like MCO things like that happen,
Yeah.
and you have to just make sure that you can self-sustain. So that's one of the
Yes.
most important thing.
Yeah, I think that's correct. That's why I think the idea of urban farming is trending now in most of the cities. And in fact, this urban farming or home edible garden is actually applying on in within the small space. So small space is no longer an issue. So everybody can plant their own edible plants so that they can have their own food at their own home also. All right, so when we talk about this urban farming, it's kind of like another angle of landscape architecture approach in designing. So maybe Juita, you can share with us landscape design approaches that we can have post-pandemic later on. Goes to you, Juita.
Okay. I will share some PowerPoint presentation that we have done. Okay. So this is some of the landscape design approach to fight pandemic that we have done based on the research and based on the our own thinking. So we should know how the virus spread. Let me introduce you how the virus spread. People can catch COVID-19 from others who have the virus. The disease spreads primarily from a person through small droplets from nose or mouth, which are expelled when a person with COVID-19 coughs, sneezes, or speaks. People can catch COVID-19 if they are breathed in these droplets from a person infected with the virus. And this is why it's important to stay at least 1 meter away from others, which is people call it as a social distancing. So there is a few landscape design that we can implement in our public spaces to ensure that people stay away, have a gap from one to another. I have developed a grid initiative that can be complied at the public spaces area, where we can transform these public spaces into safe and defined zone where people can hang out, spend outdoor, and eat outside without spreading the virus. This grid will be set in every 5 meters from one to another, and the safety zone will be colored and marked. In this plan, we do it in blue color. And every safety zone is equipped with one dining set, a round table, which is movable, foldable, can be removed easily during rainy days. And these dining sets are also resistant and made up from materials that can be frequently disinfected. So as you can see that we can also comply this at the counter where people want to buy food, which I think it's already been done at most of the cities. So this is the images to show you the usage of the grid system as a social distancing from one group to another group. And this is actually a reference image where the markers placed on the sitting areas, on the existing sittings area, mainly at the open plaza. And this is actually the markers placed on the sitting area at the existing benches, sitting area at the public places. And this is a great initiative, transform public spaces, which actually from one individual to another, especially at the counters or people want to buy things. Normally they will use this grid. We can also use street furniture, which also can act as a sculpture, and we can do it with different colors to create like a spacing from one person to another. And this is some of the images that I shared that we can use it. And this is another images, a placement of street furniture for a group social distancing where they put it randomly at the staircase, mostly. And we can also use a sculpture, external artwork sculptures as a social distancing. This is actually like a pavement colored, which we can mark it as a, is a mark of a space from one person to another. And these social distancing sculptures, maybe we can put it as a social awareness to public. And do you know that COVID-19 and air pollution is a deadly connections? And it is very, very dangerous if high level of air pollution may be one of the most important contributors to death of COVID-19. And it is possible now we have to get out from these terrible situations by having a more urban parks to help to reduce the heat in the cities, rejuvenate the outdoor tree air, and vegetations help with humidity and control the outdoor temperature. We have developed a streetscape design, a proposal, plan, and sections, which we think it's a good practice to do it as a social distancing, where you can see there is a lot of row of trees, big and mature trees, and pavement is done on the wider pavement is done to allow for social distancing, and placing street furnitures are far from another, and you can see it in the sections. We also provide a cycle lane to reduce cars and air pollutions, especially at the big cities, because it is dangerous to have air pollutions, which are dangerous for people who have a COVID-19 virus. So we plant with a lot of larger trees to absorb pollutants, gases, to reduce air pollutions, and to control the temperatures and cleaning the air in the city. So when you have the wider pavement, it will allow a social distancing from one person to another. And this is the example of images showing a good examples of wider pavement with mature larger trees. And some of the streetscape design, the street furniture design, which we use soft landscape as a social distancing from one people to another. And this is actually, it's quite new. It's a modular sitting area, which designed to accommodate the requirements of any place gracefully. It gives the flexible and freedom of design and the ability to reconfigure the installation into new shapes, quickly adapt to the new distancing requirements these days. And do you know that most of the cities in Europe, like Paris, Colombia, Berlin, and Budapest, are adding more temporary bike lanes to encourage people to get on their bikes to reduce crowding and ease pollutions, because the virus can easily spread on the bus or subway. So these are some of the images that have been implemented in some European city. And another, I believe that this touchless technology is vital to, it is automate the crossing at the traffic, and pedestrians will no longer have to push the button, and it can reduce the spreading of the virus. And one of the country in Australia, Sydney, have done this practice. Okay, and I also believe that we need to have more dog parks in the city. Is a breathable spaces, dog parks or pocket gardens connected, which should be created more in the city center, especially at the office area, commercial area, busy area, because it will reduce the air pollution. There's a lot of benefits that we can gain from these dog parks or pocket parks in the city. So I think we should have more parks in the city in the future. So this is actually a graphic shows a good practice for social distancing at park, where you can see that the pavement is wider to allow wider share paths for people to cycle, to run, and or to go for a walk. And one person have allow minimum 1 meter from one to another. And most of the kids play touch-free game, because I think nowadays people are concerned most of the parents are concerned that the kids will touch things and can easily spread the germs to another kids. And I think now it's better for the kids to play a touch-free games, which I will show you some of the games that can be proposed. Okay, one of it are hopscotch, play pathway, snake and ladder. And I believe that since there is a lot of concern from the parents to slow the spread of COVID-19 and limiting personal contact as much. The kids might be playing everywhere. They might be playing in front of the car porch, back lane, small open spaces, just in front of the houses. So because this practice will limit the amount of participants and remain distant from public areas where possible to minimize the spread of germs within the family. So this is another design that we can create to ensure that to maintain a safe physical distance between visitors, which is maze garden, because they have a space, they have a physical distance by using hedges. Spiral gardens is another options that we can propose because it gives a distance as well, where we can have hedges from one area to another, and we can also have something at the center to propose as a focal point, like a water feature or fountain or sitting area. So I believe there is also bicycle trails is also another play area for the kids to maintain the social distancing, because they play using their own bicycle. They don't share their play equipments with other kids. So this will practice the limit, the amount of participants, and remain distant from the other person. And I think there should be a temporary hand washing stations at public areas to help reduce the risk of passing on infections from one person to another. And also sanitizer stations at public area, which is where possible. And as been mentioned by Alfred and my Sarah, I think there will be a rise on the urban farming because it flourishes in coronavirus lockdown. More city dwellers grow fruits and vegetables in their homes for food security and cost saving. And this just to show you some examples of creative dining experience where some restaurants do dining in the glass structure to avoid spreading the virus from one group to another. And lastly, I believe that people will start to realize the importance of open spaces during the lockdown period, and they begin to avoid crowded places to reduce the spread of the virus, where they will place a greater value on the open space due to the physical and mental health. So I believe there might be a demand on the outdoor open spaces in the future. Okay, so that's all from me. So if everything exists within the landscape, then landscape architects must learn to design everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Juwita, for your interesting sharing on the design landscape approach towards the post-pandemic. So I believe it's all about creating this breathable space. It's like in one of your article you wrote about it. It was published last week, is it?
Yes, yes.
So this is actually allowing safety distancing, and you can see that a wider sidewalk for pedestrian, and even certain countries, they are retrofitting the lane as a cycling lane and as well for the pedestrian for safety setback.
Especially at the European cities, because they use a lot of public transport for traveling. So this can be the virus can be easily spread from one person to another. So that's why they encourage all the citizens to start to ride cycling in the city.
Yeah, even I think I've read one article, one of the country, they did fund to their citizen on the repairing of the bicycles. So I think it's quite a good move for people, right? And then you can see also, as the mom, I like the idea of touch-free game. So we feel so secure as a parents. And then you can see sanitizers will be everywhere after this. And the good thing is, I think there will both, like you said, that people appreciate more on the open space. Right. And then
the idea of play everywhere design comes from my kids, because right now we are very afraid to bring them to go to the children's playground because we don't want to touch all the material, all the
all the equipments.
We are very concerned. So right now we just let them play in front of our house for the start. and maybe after a while, maybe we just bring them to the open space, maybe bring their own bicycle or their own scooter, but not really more on touching all the equipments lah, because it's not really, it's quite
like playgrounds, right? We have to avoid the playgrounds first, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I think it makes sense. And then, yeah, people value the open space, and of course, people will divert instead of going to the shopping mall during the weekend. Perhaps we can go to the open space and do some exercising, have a better quality time with family, bonding time with them. So I think generally it's quite positive to all of us, right? Okay, so I believe all of this is actually part of opportunities that landscape architect could see in the future post-pandemic. Landscape architect Pua, maybe you could share with us any other opportunity that we foresee landscape for all these landscape architects, and then what will happen to the future market? Is there any repattern of client demands, and how we as a landscape architect could influence this stakeholder or clients in injecting this landscape architecture new norm to benefit to our community? So goes to you.
Thanks, Sarah. As a landscape architect in Malaysia, I really love the question you mentioned just now, repattern clients' demand. Before answering this, I strongly believe that we need to have an act for landscape architect profession in Malaysia. If not, currently clients the one who repattern landscape architect supply in the market currently. We are in very competitive industry and facing a lot of challenges to keep up with the client demand. Cutting short the fees of local consultants too low to justify the time that we have spent to for our client in Malaysia compared to abroad consultant fee charges. So I sincerely hope that we can have arranged another topic on this in the future. All right, back to the question, Sarah. Currently, during this period, I foresee the new opportunity that can be provided by the landscape architect will be like online as educations or talk, landscape online exhibitions, online book publications. This don't need to be booked hotel room or the hall to conduct or organize this event in the future. One of these new plan to explore. We will share with you when it comes to materializing. We are planning right now at this stage. After pandemic, I believe the construction industry will be slowing down. So think positive and act toward the passions that we can make us feel happy, when facing a new challenges. The most important things I think in life, we must enjoy the challenges, not just accept the challenges. To survive in the professions is big challenges for us, I understand, but we introduce ourselves as a composer of space. Besides landscape architect, we always link the outdoor space to the interior. We don't have a boundary between these two spaces. Yeah? If I have a chance of injecting a new norm to the client, the first thing I would like to introduce them the new design with 20 minutes city. Let me share with you some of the slide here. Can I share the screen first? Okay, sorry. Let me see how to push it up. Okay, this is my 20-minute city. Create a small nuclear entity, but can you all see? Sarah? Sorry, I hope that you all can see it. So the 20-minute city still create a small nuclear entity, build a new livable and healthy city. So this 20-minute city's future needs to be more localized, not just good in access day-to-day amenities. So this is the layout plan that we draw ourselves during this pandemic. I'm just thinking that what we can do for the future, you know. So I think between a plan for like between walking distance or bike ride, you can just go to from one end to the other end. And then in the mega city, we have to create a small nuclear entity, and each of the nuclear entity is capable of providing all the resources in local context. Yeah. So from a small nuclear that we can link out into become a bigger community area. So for the small nuclear can be connected to build a sustainable mega city is part of link up the ecosystem and also the water connection and supply as well. To summarize this, the 20-minute city is, this is like one example in, 20-minute city is something that been true in Melbourne, Australia before the coronavirus breakdown. And that almost everything citizen needs that is already in one 20-minute city area, like example, shopping, healthcare, to exercise, petrol stations, clinics, hospitals, and also the public park. Between these 20-minute cities, will take up approximately about 10% is part of the requirement from the local authorities. So at least the people during these periods, they have a place to walk or to enjoy, rather than during this period, everybody was feel depressed. Yeah, and I try to show you this picture. Yeah, and depressed and overthinking, society being disconnected. Because the people feel very bored to stay too long in the indoor area and not exposed much to the sunlight. So as a landscape architect, how we want to make these people that smile back again, So what we need to plan is create more therapeutic garden in the public park to boost the mental and emotional well-being of the citizen. Yeah, so this is one of the ideas that what we have in mind. We can encourage a citizen who work in the landscape or either urban designer to greenify their neighborhood to improve the health. This was commonly practiced in Japan. Yeah, I believe that. Is the one that we should also encourage urban farming in new planning. This is another idea to inject an urban farming in the city. It's not only in the community areas and also can apply on the roof and facade in the heart of the city or either in the roadside. This can be applied either vertically or horizontally urban farming. One of my friends from Bangkok, Pachakun, the biggest urban farming rooftop landscape architect. This is one of the work that we've done in Bangkok. Were inspired by the traditional agriculture practice. So they try to bring back this urban farming into the town areas. So what she quoted, I feel very impressed of these words. People, planner, and government should all be rethinking how land is used in the city. Urban farming can improve food security and nutrition, reduce climate change impact, and lowering stress. Yeah. So currently, more than 2/3 of the world population is forecast to live in the city by 2050. This according to the United Nations. We should start now planning more green roof for the roof garden and that contribute the sustainable of the landscape architect project. Yeah, so I share some of the project that what we did. How we're able to bring back the forest into the rooftop area. Example, like we're creating at least 4 feet to 5 feet planting soil. The photo at this site here is on first year after planting work. But after 3 years, what we see that we're able to bring back the nature into the rooftop area, although we planted at the 4th floor, that we can blend into the surrounding areas. Another project is that this is another view, after 3 years. This project in Kuala Lumpur, ASEAN, Another project is actually Ilam. How we're able to bring back the surrounding into the landscape areas. Yeah, this is also on the rooftop side. And I can imagine that we have also bring some of the nature planting that we borrow the field into the site. At least all this indirectly, you can create to reduce some stress and let people more relaxing when they stay at home. And also indirectly, this rooftop will be help to manage the surface water and also provide for wildlife and also recreation for the humans. So as a landscape architect, we should start thinking about what we can contribute back to the society and nature. To start with, a good plan is important, but to make it well-being and environmental sustainability, I think we need corporations and contributions, yeah, from the society, from the governments, from clients and developers, and also from urban planner and landscape architect as well. That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pua, for your sharing just now. Such an interesting idea of 20-minute city just now you shared. I think that is an idea of having a city with localized and accessible within 20 minutes, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
So
I
we can
realized that currently, when the clients block out, I say that between 10 kilometer or 15 kilometer, we cannot go away. But for some of the people who are living in like certain areas, they're between 10 kilometers, they really don't have certain facilities like hospital.
Yeah, correct.
You know, when it's 6, you have blocked up, so what is going to happen? So I think in the future plan, we must be consist all these basic amenities and facility between these 20 minutes walking distance or bike rides locations.
Yeah,
That
correct.
very people work, you know, after post-pandemic also we don't worry what is going to happen in the future. At least we already plan from now. I think in the future, if this thing happen again, we already resolve the issue.
So it's basically a city with sufficient facilities that could help to reduce any risk in terms of food security, or can also reduce our stress, right? Especially in consuming time, commuting from place to another place, right? Okay, so like you said, with all this concept or proposal, I think it definitely need a holistic support from various of professionals, include stakeholders, the developers, and as well as societies. So we hope that this model can be further review or further work out in the future, right? So it's all about urbanization, I guess. So we back to Mr. Takano. You see this urbanization, it always relate with massive developments, right? So what is your opinion about working in the countryside? What will happen to the landscape practice there?
I think most of the panelists' idea is still following the idea of the urbanization and the concentration to the big city, keep moving, and the rural area is abandoned. And even you try to make a paving pattern for the social distance or distribute the facility, street furniture or park furniture on that point of view. But maybe 20% of the population can enjoy, but another 80% have to stay home in order to use that areas. And I think if the people still keep moving into the big city, it doesn't solve the problem at all, because Corona this time was expanded so rapidly is because there are so many people living in the big city, so high density, and they have to commute by train and subways. And I think if I'm going to Tokyo sometimes and see the situation, and now they are suffering with the corona, but at the same time, earthquake or some natural disaster might happen at the same time, and it will be the nearly end of the world if that happens in Tokyo now. And I think basically as a landscape architect, our knowledge and our skill should be more used to how to make the national land use plan and how to distribute the population more comfortable for the people's living. Then we can use a lot of ideas of the panelists of the making the idea of cities and some design possibilities. And if we misplace the first button of the, when we are wearing the shirts, you cannot change the gap forever until you find the first mistake at the beginning. You can never reach the correct answer. And our professional skills are for the finding the difference of the mistake. And I'm sure the centralization in the big city was a long button at the beginning. So that is being living in a rural area 30 years, and I don't know why the people still keep moving into the big city and suffering. And if we stop those movements, I think most of the corona problem is easily solved, not so difficult. So that is my answer. And it is very easy to move to the countryside and run the operation. And many companies is not necessarily the whole the manpower have to stay in a big city. Maybe the main headquarter office and some sales division need to stay there, but designers or most of the productive areas, maybe over half of the people can operate the organization in the countryside. And our knowledge and our skills should be used on that stage first. Then next stage we help to design more in detail. So I think please think about your office. Maybe you can shift half or 2/3 of your people to the countryside to develop the design work, and the headquarter can run the things in the inside. And I think we should have some courage to take one step forward on that direction. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Takano, for your kind of like paradox opinion about the urbanization, right? So you talk about how this centralization in a big city was a big mistake, right?
Mistakes, yes.
Yeah. So how decentralization has caused depopulation and abandonment of countryside. You say that a small company, why, if the small company can survive in the big city, why they can't do it in the countryside? Yeah. So I guess all landscape architects can consider back. Maybe you can explore back in your hometown. Maybe you guys wanna back to your hometown, find some opportunity there to do landscape architect practice. All right.
I'm not saying that give up the big city life. I think that is fun and interesting too. But you can have the both direction.
Both direction.
Yeah. Enjoy the city life and at the same time enjoy the rural life too.
Yeah, correct. So of course, in moving forward to create a healthy city, the government or the policymakers play important role where they have to relook these policy guidelines to match back with the post-pandemic situation for the betterment of community and environment. So I guess, Alfred, maybe you would like to share with us or elaborate more on this matter.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks for letting me know that my screen wasn't moving like in the previous presentation. So I think it's actually quite essential to let people see my slides. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly run through the slides. And so this is where I talk about the greeneries and waters and like some of the main resources in Singapore that's like scarce, and some of the existing like measurements and what could happen post-pandemic, and the manpower and also food security, which are the two most affected components like during the pandemic, and what might actually the government do to actually try to overcome this issue. We talk about like food farming. So Singapore have this vision of like 30 by 30. So maybe they have to just change that all over again. And government that's like giving grant for research and development on urban farming on a regional scale. And on a community scale, maybe there's like going to be a pickup in terms of like community-based like urban farming. So they're talking about using like rooftop of multi-story car parks in the HDB to be able to do that. And individual level, you can actually do this at home, like about a container or like a shelf that you can just grow your own vegetable at home. And I also focused on like the business side of it. So we have to better equip ourselves and talk to people, support if we are business owner, support our staff. And if we don't already do it, so make it like a mantra or like a core value of your business on the things that you should practice. And I'm going to come back to this. So this is actually to respond to your question about policies and like guidelines, because just now I didn't really like talk about this a lot. So in Singapore, like this is my experience in Singapore. So what is actually happening right now is that before the pandemic, there is like a few things that's going on. So one of the things is actually about the landscape replacement program. So at the moment, it's like about 100% replacement, which means that if you take out like 1 square meter of like greenery from the site, you have to replace it with 1 square meter of like landscape back to the site. So there might be actually a surge or like a change in that policy, and who knows, like maybe the government will say like we have to do like 1 to 1.2 to 1 replacement. That kind of things might happen. And the second thing is actually about the tree conservation area. So Singapore have this policy that was like established in 90s. So it's already been a long time ago. So about 10% or slightly less than 10% of Singapore, there's like a zone that being designated as tree conservation area. So what you can't do is like for trees that's like more than 1 meter in girth, you cannot cut down the trees without like MParks permission. So you have to actually apply to be able to like make that happen. Then who knows, like maybe this could be one of the things that happen post-pandemic. Okay, I have to go back because I mean, the important thing to let you know is that like we talk about like pandemic and how it affect us, but one of the main thing is that people like nature. So one of the things that aside from like talking to like people, so the other thing that they miss is actually you know, like be able to actually connect with nature. So that's why some of these things may just like being expedited. And who knows, like there might be some green program, whatever I mentioned and shown here, they could be actually made mandatory, or like there might be some policy changes in by showing like, okay, maybe within certain development, you have to have like certain amount of green plot ratio, and they will just make it mandatory for all the developers like to follow. So we are not very sure about that. Like even like for things like active, beautiful, clean. So there's already like certain like rules and regulation, like for example, like on-site detention, stormwater detention that have to do at the site, and maybe they would just make like the active, beautiful, clean like compulsory for all the development. And even for manpower, there might be like some changes in terms of like manpower. So we are talking about like a lot about workplace safety. So maybe who knows, like in the future, we won't be doing inspection ourselves, and we might actually be using drones and robotics, and like robotics that can connect with like augmented reality. So even though you're not at the site physically examined, but you can actually feel and see the thing. So it will actually cut down workplace injury. And there's going to be more like things like a PPVC, like prefabricated, pre-finished volumetric construction, things that's like going to be pushed through as well. So this will actually cut down the reliance on like manpower. And the other thing that is closely related to us is like for the landscape maintenance in the future, maybe you have to look at like technologies in handling some of the things, I mean, for Singapore, and so that they won't rely on people going around to water the plants and things like that might happen. And so I think this is actually pretty much like similar to what Mr. Paul mentioned. So we can't really like make this thing happen without collaborative efforts from all the all the stakeholders, because like it has to be like a top-down effort, and we ourselves, we can actually start like initiative of introducing like the idea, but I think the main thing is like we have to get everyone to work together, sit together, and then talk about it. So we are talking about like government agency that's like setting up like guidelines, regulation, and developers that's like willing to support the idea, and design disciplines like town planners, landscape architects, engineers. So we all have to actually play our parts in doing those things. And lastly, have an open mind. So I think we don't know everything in the world to be able to say that we already know everything and this is it. So we have to like be very open-minded to like and be able to actually embrace technology and things like that. So I'll just stop there. Back to you, myself.
Thank you very much, Alfred. Yeah, again, all these efforts with the current pandemic, I believe that all the professionals, stakeholders, policymaker, we should be sit down together in molding these all policies and guidelines for a better version to create this healthy city. So I guess we have come to an end. To summarize that, I guess all the panelists have shared their experiences during pandemic in their region. And we have Juwita explain on the future landscape design approaches and strategies post-pandemic. We have Mr. Phua talk about business resilience, preparedness, future demands, and creating our influence. While Mr. Syed, Alfred talk about the pandemic impact on the policies and guidelines. Alfred also discussed about how landscape architect could contribute to the community based on urban farming, so forth. And lastly, we have Mr. Takano share his experience as a landscape architect practice and living in the countryside. Well, I hope that all of you have gained something out of the topic and the contents that we have discussed today. So before we end, maybe we can have a few last words from all the panelists. We start with Juwita.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, I think for this pandemic crisis, we have to be very patient. We have to be very calm. We have to keep on moving and focus with our jobs. And we must constantly reinvent our business model in this challenging time. And I believe we must take time to assess how the markets will change, and we align our business strategies to be future ready. And every sphere of the economy, is including the construction industry, it will face the constraints, but I believe it will recover eventually because crisis doesn't last forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Juwita.
Yeah.
Can we have Mr. Takano? Few last words from Japan.
Yeah, I think the crisis does not continue forever, but it will come back again. I think we have to think the living so many people close together and keep forming the big city is a mistake. And there's a lots of another open spaces and all over the world and all over the countries. And as a landscape architect, we should spend our energy and our knowledge, which is what is the ideal distribution of the population pattern. And we need to have a social distance between the cities and peoples, not only just individual people's social distance. It doesn't solve the problem. That is my word.
Okay, thank you. We have Mr. Phua. Any last word?
Yeah, probably my 20 minutes city after I listen to Takano, probably we need to make it a distant apart. All right. I believe during pandemic or post-pandemic, life full of challenges. My quote to is that I think just remember, enjoy the challenges, not just accept the challenges. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Phua. So Alfred?
Yeah, I would like to just share one like diagram. So it's something that I have like gotten from my colleague, which I think that is actually very useful for everyone to look at. So it's actually talking about, can everyone see my screen? So yeah, it's actually talking about like reactions that you might have like during the pandemic. So, and where you want to be. So I hope that everyone can actually be at the spectrum of like the groove zone. So the most important thing is like think positively, and we are, you know, like as a human being, if we are like one of the very sophisticated like things that God has created on earth, and I think that we can actually overcome this together. So stay positive and stay strong, stay healthy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alfred. So we have Mr. Said, but anyway, Mr. Said is not in the screen. Sorry that he got to leave earlier. So we have come to the end. Thank you to all our valuable panelists for spending your time for this sharing session, very meaningful, very fruitful sharings, and hope all the viewers, you have benefited from this webinar session. So before we end up, I would like to highlight to you our next webinar session, Series 4. We have Series 4 that will be moderated by Associate Professor Landscape Dr. Khalila Zakaria with the topic of alternative ways of teaching and learning landscape architecture on 19 May 2020, Tuesday, 10:30 a.m. And that they have lined up 4 panelists. Mr. Ronnie Tan from Singapore, School of Design, Temasek Polytechnic Singapore. Also the president of Singapore Institute of Landscape Architects, SILA. We also have Dr. Razia Ahmad from Malaysia, the head of Center of Studies Landscape Architecture, UITM. Associate Professor Dr. Arya Aruninta, Department of Landscape Architecture, Chulalongkorn University from Thailand. Professor Landscape Architect Dr. Hasanuddin Lamid from Department of Landscape Architecture, University Technology Malaysia. So stay tuned, follow our YouTube and Facebook channel. Don't forget to collect your CPD point. Like I said, snapshot your live screen and then submit to us before 31st May. So with that, last but not least, stay safe, stay home, keep social distancing, and start your new normal, new norm, and prepare with any future challenges. Until we meet again, Salam Aidilfitri to all Muslims, and sorry for any shortcomings throughout this webinar session. Take care and bye.
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 Bye.